No one in Seoul ever imagined that the most feared Mafia CEO, Baek Hae-jin, the cold-eyed king who ruled the underworld with iron precision, would one day lie helpless, gasping for life on a hospital bed. The man whose very name could silence a room was dying. Doctors failed. His enemies celebrated. His own men prepared for the worst. And yet, the cure he desperately needed was walking the streets barefoot, hungry, forgotten, and invisible. A homeless black African woman named Ella, whose blood carried a secret that would rewrite destiny. Welcome to KSoulStories. Thanks for joining us. Please hit the subscribe button right now. Your support helps me bring you more thrilling Afro-Korean story romances. Now let's dive in. The news of Hae-jin's mysterious illness shook every corner of Seoul. One evening he had collapsed in his private office, blood spilling from his nose, vision fading. At first his men thought it was exhaustion, until his pulse dropped so fast they panicked. Within minutes he was rushed to a private hospital that always knew to clear its hallways whenever he arrived. But even the most elite doctors were helpless. His blood was deteriorating at a terrifying rate, rejecting every treatment. A rare toxin had entered his system, something used only by high-ranking criminal groups trying to claim his throne. His loyal doctor whispered to his lieutenant, "He won't survive another 48 hours. Hae-jin heard them. His fingers twitched. He was a man who feared nothing, yet for the first time he tasted death. In the metallic air of the hospital, in the cold trembling under his skin, in the silence his men didn't dare break. In those fading moments, memories flooded his mind. He remembered the day he became what he was. 15 years old, watching his father get gunned down in an alley because he refused to bow to corruption. He remembered his mother's tears as she begged him not to seek revenge. He remembered ignoring her pleas and stepping into the darkness anyway. He remembered every life he'd taken, every enemy he'd crushed, every bridge he'd burned. He had built an empire, but somewhere along the way, he'd lost his soul. Now, lying in that hospital bed, he wondered if this was his punishment. To die alone, powerful but unloved, feared but unseen, a king with no kingdom that mattered. Meanwhile, in another forgotten part of the city, Ella shivered beneath a bridge near the Han River. She had left her home country years ago searching for a better life, but everything had collapsed. Her papers stolen, her job gone, her dreams scattered like dust. Still, she held on to her faith, whispering the same prayer every night. "God, if you see me, don't forget me." Ella had her own story of survival. She remembered arriving in Seoul with hope burning in her chest. She was going to study, work hard, send money back home to her younger siblings. But the world had been crueler than she imagined. The agency that promised her work had disappeared with her passport. The room she'd paid for turned out to be a scam. Within weeks, she was on the streets, invisible to the thousands who passed her daily. Some nights, she questioned whether she should just go home. But pride kept her frozen. How could she return empty-handed? How could she face her family after promising them a better life? So she stayed, hungry, cold, forgotten, but still praying, still believing that somehow, somewhere, God hadn't abandoned her. Little did she know, destiny had been searching for her. Early the next morning, Ella saw a young boy crying outside a grocery store. He had scraped his knee badly, bleeding more than he should. Without hesitation, she pulled out a small cloth from her pocket, cleaned his wound, and told him, "You'll be fine, little one." The boy's mother rushed over, relieved, thanking Ella passionately, because her son had a rare blood condition that made simple injuries dangerous. But as Ella touched the boy, something unexpected happened. The swelling around his wound faded instantly. The mother stared, speechless. The woman grabbed Ella's hands, tears streaming down her face. "What did you do? How did you do that?" Ella shook her head, confused. "I didn't do anything. I just cleaned it." But the mother wasn't listening. She was staring at the boy's knee, where moments ago there had been angry red swelling. Now there was only a small scrape already beginning to heal. The woman was married to a doctor. Not just any doctor, but one who occasionally treated people who couldn't go to regular hospitals. People from the underground. That evening, she told her husband what she'd witnessed. He dismissed it at first, chalking it up to maternal anxiety. But she insisted. And when he finally looked at the boy's medical records and saw how quickly the wound had healed, his scientific mind couldn't ignore it. Within hours, rumors spread quietly through the city. They reached a private doctor known for treating the underground elite. He told the Mafia, "There's a woman with an unusual blood type, something extremely rare. It could save Hae-jin." His men began searching all over Seoul. In the hospital, Hae-jin's breathing grew weaker. His heartbeat was a thin whisper. The Mafia lieutenant dropped to his knees beside the bed. "Boss, please hold on. We will find her." Hae-jin didn't reply. His eyes drifted shut, surrendering to darkness. The lieutenant, Min-jun, stood outside the hospital room, his hands shaking as he lit a cigarette. He'd followed Hae-jin since they were teenagers. He owed this man everything. Hae-jin had pulled him from the gutter, given him purpose, made him family. And now he was losing him. The doctors kept saying there was no hope, but Min-jun refused to accept it. He gathered every available man and sent them into the streets. Find the woman with the healing touch. Find her or don't come back. That same night, Ella was sleeping under a cardboard sheet when bright headlights pierced her eyes. Large men in black surrounded her. She flinched, ready to run, but one of them said, "We're not here to hurt you. Please, our boss needs you." Ella's heart hammered in her chest. She'd heard stories about people disappearing in Seoul, about trafficking rings that preyed on the vulnerable. Every instinct screamed at her to run, but something in the man's voice stopped her. It wasn't threat. It was desperation. It was pain. Who is your boss?" she asked, her voice trembling. "Someone who's dying," Min-jun said simply. "And you might be the only one who can save him." They escorted her to the private hospital. Nurses stared at her. Bare feet, torn clothes, hair messy from wind and cold. They couldn't imagine how someone like her could save someone like him. Some whispered. Some laughed. One nurse even tried to stop them. "You can't bring her in here. This is a private facility." Min-jun's eyes turned cold. "Move. Now." The nurse stepped aside. Ella entered the dim room. She saw Hae-jin lying there, sharp features weakened, pale lips trembling, oxygen mask fogged. Machines beeped urgently. He looked nothing like the powerful man his reputation described. He looked human, vulnerable, dying. The doctor explained, "His body is rejecting every blood type. But your blood, it might be the only match." Ella's hands trembled. "Why me? I'm just..." "Please," the lieutenant said, bowing deeply. "He has protected us for years. We have no one else." Ella looked at the unconscious man. He reminded her of herself, strong on the outside, silently broken inside. She thought about all the times she'd prayed for purpose, for a sign that her suffering meant something. Maybe this was it. Maybe this was why she'd survived. She nodded. The transfusion began. The medical team worked with precision, but there was an unusual energy in the room. As Ella's blood flowed into Hae-jin's veins, something remarkable happened. The monitors that had been erratic suddenly began to stabilize. The toxin levels that had been climbing steadily started to drop. Hae-jin's fingers twitched first. Then a faint warmth spread through his skin. The monitors steadied. His pulse strengthened. The toxin levels began dropping dramatically. Doctors gasped, unable to believe what they were seeing. Ella winced from the needle, but she didn't stop. "Hang on," she whispered to him, though he couldn't hear. "Don't give up. Not today." Minutes passed. Then an hour. Then another. The lead doctor kept checking the readings, his face a mixture of disbelief and wonder. "This is impossible," he muttered. "The toxin is neutralizing. His organs are regenerating. I've never seen anything like this." Min-jun stood in the corner, watching Ella. She was pale, clearly exhausted from the blood loss, but she didn't complain. She just kept her eyes on Hae-jin, willing him to survive. Who was this woman? Why would a homeless stranger risk her health for a man she didn't know? Min-jun had seen loyalty bought with money and fear. But this was different. This was pure. Suddenly his eyes opened. Dark, intense, confused. They landed on her. A barefoot woman with tired eyes. The woman whose blood had pulled him back from death. Ella tried to step away, embarrassed, but his hand shot forward, gently catching her wrist. "Who are you?" His voice was rough, broken, but there was something else inside it, something soft. "I'm Ella," she whispered. He stared at her as if she were a miracle, because to him she was. The room erupted in controlled chaos. Doctors rushed forward to check his vitals. Min-jun exhaled for what felt like the first time in days. But Hae-jin's eyes never left Ella. Even as they checked his blood pressure, shone lights in his eyes, adjusted his he watched her. This stranger who had saved him. Over the next few days, Ella remained in the hospital so the doctors could monitor her. She expected to be ignored, mocked, or pushed aside. Instead, the Mafia members treated her like royalty. They brought her clean clothes, warm meals, even blankets. But the strangest part was Hae-jin's reaction. On the third morning, he struggled out of bed just to see her. "You saved me," he said. "I helped," she replied shyly. "But the doctors did the rest." He shook his head. "No, you did what no one else could." From that moment, he insisted she stay close. He wanted to hear her voice, her story, her dreams. She told him everything. How she came to Seoul, how her life collapsed, how loneliness became her shadow. And for the first time in years, he listened to someone truly listened. He learned that she loved poetry, that she used to sing in her church choir back home, that she dreamed of opening a shelter for homeless women someday. He learned that despite everything she'd lost, she hadn't lost her kindness. She still smiled at strangers. She still helped when she could. She still believed in goodness. And slowly, something inside Hae-jin began to crack. The walls he'd built around his heart. The coldness he'd worn like armor. In her presence, they started to crumble. His men watched in shock. The Mafia CEO, who never softened for anyone, now smiled quietly whenever she spoke. One afternoon, Min-jun found Hae-jin sitting by the window, watching Ella read a book in the hospital garden below. "Boss," he said carefully, "what are you going to do about her?" "What do you mean?" "You know what I mean. You can't keep her here forever. Eventually, she'll want to leave. She'll want to go back to her life." Hae-jin's jaw tightened. "What life? Living under a bridge? Starving? Being invisible? That's not your decision to make." "I know," Hae-jin said softly, "but I can give her a choice. A real choice. A better life." Days turned into weeks. Hae-jin recovered fully, but Ella prepared to leave. She didn't want to depend on him. She didn't think she deserved his kindness.